Hello, and welcome back to Resilient Break Every Chain with Resilient Susanna. I missed a day on yesterday, so I'm going to be accountable to you guys, asking your forgiveness as we are doing our 5 day journey of faith. However, yesterday was a very special day. My mother in law will be celebrating 90 years on Monday, but we did a family celebration. The family came together and had an awesome time along with our sister who's gonna be 100 in July. So I'm sure you're gonna agree with me. Put some love in the comments and some love for them because God has kept them. Women of faith who love God, and we've been talking about faith. So I just want to jump in to our study this evening for the next few minutes, and we are looking at Abraham. Abraham, the father of faith, a man of God who lived through the centuries and who's known as the father of faith. Why? Imagine the verses attributed to him in this hall of fame is from verses 8 straight on to verse 19. Because of the life he lived and demonstrated the quality of faith he demonstrated before God. Verse 8 says, by faith Abraham obeyed God. It takes faith to obey, because when you don't believe, why would you obey? You would walk in doubt, you'll walk in uncertainty, and don't want to act upon uncertainty. When we don't believe, it hinders action. But by faith, Abraham obeyed when he was called to go to the place where he would receive an inheritance. He went out not knowing where he was going. A lot of the times when God calls us, we don't know where we're going. The instructions seem vague, uncertain, perplexing, confusing, and a lot of time different to all that we have grown accustomed to. And so it was with Abraham. God was calling him to leave his home, his family, his children, his neighbors, all that he had grown accustomed to, all that was his life, with a great big promise. But there was no proof of that promise, especially since he had not had that child as yet. This is the kind of God we serve, that calls upon us to believe him even when it seems like we cannot. My mother used to say, you trust him where you can't trace him. And Abraham was able to do that. And verse 9 and 10 says, by faith he dwelt in the land of promise as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. He lived in that land as a foreigner, as a not having citizenship, not having any rights and privileges. He dwelt in tents. He wasn't even dwelling in a house, because as a foreigner, you're uncomfortable. You look different. You talk different. You behave different. You seem out of place. Even he had the promise that one day that place would belong to him. And by faith he continued there as an alien and a foreigner, a sojourner, the word of God says, in a country, because his confidence was that God said to him, I am going to give you this land, and I'm going to make you as the sand of the sea. In you shall all the nations of the earth be blessed. This was his confidence. Verse 11 and 12 talks about Sarah. It says, by faith Sarah herself also received strength to conceive seed, and she bore a child when she was past the age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore from one man, and him as good as dead, were born as many as the stars of the sky in multitude, innumerable as the sand which is by the seashore. God brought the promise to pass. You remember when Sarah first heard the promise, she laughed, because in her mind, oh my God, this sounds ridiculous. She laughed. But Abraham believed God, and they both lived to see that God kept his word, that God is faithful to do what he promised, and that nothing is impossible with him. And so she was able to bear that child and see God begin to increase. They died. not having seen how their multiplication would have taken place, but they died in faith, believing, knowing who God is. In verse 13 and 16, we see that it says, these all died in faith, not having received the promise, but having seen them afar off. Faith sees not only today, it sees distant future, it sees possibilities. Right? And we like to see things now. We like immediate. We like things, just fast. But sometimes faith is being patient, being consistent, seeing things as they could be and not necessarily how they appear at the moment. Right? They embrace them and they confess that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things, declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, they had called to mind that country from which they had come. But now they desire better. That is a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. I want you to really make time to read these verses. They all died in faith, believing God. They saw the promise afar off. They were assured of it. They embraced the promise of God. They confessed these promises even when circumstances said otherwise. And they believed God to the end, never doubting who he is and standing upon his word. Had Abraham given up, he would not have received the promise. Verse 17 and 19, by faith Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac, as I was saying. And he who had received the promise offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, in Isaac your seed shall be called. So here it is, you're contradicting yourself. This is the child you promised me, and now you will take him away. I want to believe that Abraham said, hey, even if I sacrifice this boy, God is going to raise him from the dead. So Abraham was not afraid. He was not in doubt. He know that this is the child of promise. That is his faith. And he know that God, if he allowed me to kill him, oh Lord, you're going to raise him up, because he is the fulfillment of your word. And so Abraham proceeded to do what God would have asked him to do until God intervened. God knew the heart of Abraham, but Abraham also had to know how far he was willing to go to show the love and the faith and the confidence that he had in God, because he believed the God that he served. And so he lived on as an example to us. Right? He said, at one verse, it says that he reasoned in his mind. He made a calculated guess, in other words, that, hey, the God who made that promise is able to bring it to pass. We like to reason out things. This is the confidence that Abraham had. In his mind, the God that I serve is more than able. And I want to encourage you as you face this week, the God that you serve is more than able. The God that you serve is more than able. Trust in him. Put your confidence in him. Don't try to figure out everything. Just know the God that you serve is more than able. He's more than enough. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to just send you love and blessing, that you would have a fabulous week. Remember, click the link in my bio. God bless you. Love you.